Welcome to another edition of Transparency in Government. We're joined again here today by our friendly town manager, Kevin Smith. And as you know, Kevin comes on once a month and talks to us about what's happening around town, gives us a few more details than we might find in the paper or pick up at a meeting. And Kevin, I want to start off with something really positive today. First of all, it doesn't look to me like your hair's growing out. Are you keeping it short now?
Well, truth be told, after the initial cut, Dottie, I did get a trim.
Okay.
So
you had one hair that was like 1/8 of an inch long?
Well, you know, it's summertime, and I have to tell you, I fully underestimated the easiness of this haircut.
I am sure.
And so
for those of you who are not aware, Kevin is one of the many people around town who had his hair cut off completely in support of Zach O'Brien.
Right.
And Zach is a young man here in town that I'm going to let Kevin tell you a little bit about Zach and who he is and why we're being supportive of him and why this is a good news day.
Well, I mean, Zach is, as you mentioned, he's a young guy who lives here in town. He's 22 years old.
Been here his whole life.
He has. He's the son of the fire chief, Darren O'Brien, and he's also a firefighter on the force. And unfortunately, recently had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Scary diagnosis.
It is. Scary for him, scary for the family, and but the community, the fire department, the amount of support that he's had around him has been just absolutely tremendous through this. And we're all very hopeful that he'll make a speedy recovery through all of this. We'll be back to 100% full health and be able to rejoin the fire department soon. But in the meantime, as a show of support for him, we did have a fundraiser in which many of us
cut off your hair for a fee.
That's right. And good for them. They raised a significantly amount more than the minimum that we had put on it. So it was just great. And it was people from outside of Londonderry as well as inside Londonderry that came and donated. It was really wonderful.
Yeah. And Zach's a great kid, and from what I understand, he's had his last chemo, and he'll be tested in a few months, and we'll see how things stand. But right now, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, fingers crossed, and
keep open for
many
Zach.
Prayers their way.
Prayers are good. Yeah. Okay. So, all right, let's go from the very young to the very old.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about the seniors. What's going on with our seniors down on the Sanborn Road property?
Sure. So there's two major senior topics right now. One is the expansion of the senior center, which will be getting underway very shortly. It was something that was passed by the voters and on the March ballot to expand the senior center to allow more areas for programming, some larger bathrooms and a kitchen area. We have an ever-expanding senior population. The senior center programs and activities are a big hit. Kathy Blash does a marvelous job with them over there.
Fantastic job.
Can't say enough good things about her. And so, and the good news is we were able to do this expansion at no cost to the taxpayer. We did it with surplus funds in the expendable fund balance. So that was good. I was glad it got approved, and as I said, that expansion will be underway.
And that is something that's been asked for a number of years now.
It was on the capital improvements program
for
many years, and so we're finally getting that one done, which is great news. The other thing that's happening, of course, is the affordable senior housing, which is being cited for the Sanborn Road property. And that is still moving forward. The developer, Stephen Lewis, has applied to New Hampshire Finance Authority for the tax credits to be able to begin building the housing next year. It's run into some hiccups in that there are more environmental issues on that land than what was originally thought. There hadn't been a survey done of the land in quite some time, and now that there's been a recent survey by the developer, what we've realized is that there are issues on that property, not insurmountable things, but things that make it a little bit more difficult to build there between state regulations and town regulations.
Okay.
And as I've told Steve Lewis, that we're viewing this as a partnership because the town wants the affordable housing.
Right.
It was for that reason that we virtually gave the land away for him to build there. And so in that there are variances needed or waivers through the planning board. We're going to do our best to see that, again, it is a partnership here, because I think folks would be very disappointed, especially our senior population, if suddenly we weren't able to do this project because the town's regulations got in the way.
Yeah. Well, that's another project that's been on the list for a very long time. That Sanborn Road
It
property.
is.
I know the seniors
Yeah.
have been looking at that for
Right.
senior housing.
Right. I can
so-
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so we still think that he'll be able to start addressing those issues and be ready to start building in a year?
I do. He'll be coming forward pretty soon with a site plan, formal site plan for design review.
Okay.
But as I said, it's going to be a site plan it'll need some variances and it'll need some regulation waivers if it's going to move forward.
Okay.
And as I said, hopefully because the town wants the project, it's not just it's a tax credit programs, the way these works. The rent is being offered at a lower rate to elderly folks through the tax credits that he receives from New Hampshire Finance Authority. New Hampshire Finance Authority will only give the tax credits if they view this as a viable
Of course, yeah.
project. So there's many moving parts here, but they're all, it's not just I don't want people to think that this is just a private developer coming in doing a for-profit, that it has going to have no benefit.
And that was what went through people's minds when the deal first came up, I know. Yeah.
Right, but instead it is really a partnership because, as I said, it's something the town had identified for quite some time that it wanted to offer its seniors more affordable housing, and it is a tax credit program through the state as well.
And if you hadn't been able to form this partnership, it probably would have been delayed even longer before we could get something done out there, would be my guess.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's a former, hazardous dump site. So it's got issues on the property.
Yeah.
There probably
And then,
would not be.
there's the wetlands out there too on
There's
that property.
there's wetlands, but there's man-made wetlands out there
That
now
too,
too,
yes,
and that's something that nobody knew was out there, and so that's thrown another snag into it. I mean, I'll tell you this, Dottie, if this were just a private developer, this would have been DOA from the minute no regular developer would have
tackled it.
would think about tackling this at that point because there's just so many hurdles along the way. So I'm optimistic about it, but there's, as I said, there are more hiccups involved that we're finding out right now than what was previously thought.
Okay. And just to clarify, if I understand correctly, the man-made wetlands were not man-made deliberately.
No,
They occurred in other
weren't.
things that were going on the property, and then that.
Right, but for instance, there was a lot of dirt dumped on that property from Exit 5.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
And it wasn't just smoothed out and raked and everything. It was dumped in piles.
Kind of a little mountain.
And that prevented water from properly draining. So the water builds up, it creates a little wetland. Again, not a natural wetland, but it's a man-made wetland, and you still need to go through the permit
mitigate
approval
that,
process.
Okay, well, as long as we know we're making some progress. out
Yes,
there,
it
that's a
is
good
making
thing.
progress.
And the seniors are getting their expansions,
Yep.
so they should be having a pretty good year.
Yeah.
Or two.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay. So what else has been going on over there? You guys are busy.
Well, the
Even though
recycling buckets are getting delivered.
Recycling, yes.
So
I've got my bucket.
That's good. The new recycling program starts July 1st. So people, the buckets all came with a calendar on them, so people know when to put their recycling out. We've gotten some complaints from older folks who say it's too big, either too big for them to maneuver or too big for their garage or whatever. There are smaller 35-gallon bins available. So if you want a smaller bin, call the Public Works Department, stop in at Town Hall and let them know you want a 35-gallon bin. So that should hopefully take care of the problem if people just don't recycle a lot or don't have a lot of recycling and don't want a large, 96 gallon
Well,
bin.
I had something nice happen in relationship to this recycling bins because my house has a 537 Mammoth Road address,
Yep.
but my garage is on the other corner.
Okay.
So that's where I keep the barrels. And I looked out one morning and there was this large recycling bin sitting out on the Mammoth Road side. And I'm like, that's a long way around there
Yeah.
for me. So I kind of left it sitting there for a day while I thought about how I was going to get it around. And then next thing I knew, it was gone. And somebody knocked on my door and said, just wanted you to know that I just brought your recycling bin into your garage for
that
you.
was
And here's
nice.
the paper. One of my neighbors.
Oh, how nice.
I have amazing neighbors.
Sounds like
They're
you do.
They're really wonderful.
That's great.
And I hope that kind of thing is happening in other neighborhoods as
Yeah,
well.
that's great.
And
That's
it
nice to
was-
hear, Dottie.
yeah, and getting that out from my garage to the street,
Yeah,
somebody else is doing that too. So
that's really
I'm really
nice.
very fortunate that way with people that help out.
that's great.
So you might be surprised. There might be somebody right next door that's willing to help you out.
Hey, we got to all look after one another,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yep. I figure, we looked after them when they were really little, and
Yeah.
now it's time for them to kind of pay back a little bit. So the recycling sounds really, really great. And I know that this is something that is actually going to be, would you call it a money saver or a money maker? A money saver?
This is a money saver.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not making
We're not
any
gonna-
money
we're
on
not
it,
going to
but
be
we're
selling our tin cans and
no, but
aluminum cans?
we are definitely
that date
saving
me?
a lot of money, about $1 million over
Yeah,
the life of the
yeah.
contract.
that's great.
Yeah.
That is great. Let's see. Now, we've got something that's been being discussed, and I know that I've heard from a number of people on this over the years, a noise ordinance. There is a perception that we've always had a noise ordinance and that people were not supposed to do things before, I think it was like, and like I said, this is totally perception.
Yeah.
I have never read it. But like before 8 a.m., because it was just, uncivilized to start making major noise before 8 a.m. And I don't remember an ending time, but I think probably around the same time. And then all of us seem to think that Sundays ought to be different. We really ought to be able to sleep in a little bit on Sunday morning and not hear, not the construction work, because that's not what's going on Sunday morning as a rule, but the lawnmowers and the weed whackers and
Right, right.
So what's happening with this noise ordinance? What's it going to try and address?
So we don't have a noise ordinance.
And we never had
and
one.
we
It was all in our imagination.
never had a noise ordinance.
Wow.
The only reference to noise in any of the ordinances has to do with vehicle noise, which is in one of our traffic ordinances.
Vehicle, as in like those motorcycles?
As
with
in
no
exhaust, sounds from vehicles. But that's the only noise ordinance that we have on the books right now. So this noise ordinance is to address a lot of other noises
Okay.
that occasionally occur from time to time in town. Construction noise, that's a big one.
Yeah.
We often get a lot of complaints about construction noise, and not
Well,
just
I know, having been married to a builder for quite a while, that especially in the summer, they want to get out there
Right,
early
they
before
do.
the sun gets up there,
Right.
and they want to start early. So I have some sympathy
Yeah,
for
sure.
them.
Well,
but-
there's always got to be a
yeah.
balance, Dottie.
Yeah.
I know they want to be out there early, but guess what? People want to sleep too. And so you've got to balance between what is the proper time they can and can't be
Right.
starting construction.
Yeah.
We've said 7 a.m. We've set 7 a.m. as that time. But it's construction noise, both vehicles and construction equipment. It's loud,
Those nail guns.
loud stereos is another one. Yelling and screaming.
Oh, darn, no more yelling and screaming.
Only after a certain time.
Oh, okay.
Just nuisance noise.
Yeah.
Now, we also did carve out some exemptions in there. Agricultural and farming is exempted in the policy.
Okay. So the farmer can go out in the field in his tractor at 5 a.m. if he needs to.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Just field.
there's that, or there's, I got feedback from a number of the farms that they do a lot of their spraying in the middle of the night, and that can make some noise. Londonderry has a very rich agricultural heritage,
do.
as we know, and
Yeah.
farming history. And we still have a lot of farms in town. We don't want to lose that.
No.
And we certainly don't want to suddenly tell them they have to change their practices
Yeah, we
based
don't
on
wanna
this
make things
ordinance.
difficult for
Yeah.
them.
So you know, Dottie, it's really aimed at more common sense things. You know, kind of like the leash law. You know, if
Can we make a law about common sense?
well, unfortunately, you can't
It would
mandate
cover so many other things.
yeah,
We
or
wouldn't have to worry
legislate
about.
common sense.
Yeah.
But so that's where it was primarily aimed, and
okay.
so and there are the hours are shortened on Sundays as far as you know the loud noises. But that's primarily where the noise ordinance is aimed at. There is a
Okay.
public hearing on July 11th.
July 11th.
At the next
okay.
council meeting
Okay.
that anyone can go to and express their opinion on it. And we'll also be posting a copy of it, a draft of it online.
Okay.
So people can take a look at it as well before that date.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds fair.
Yeah.
All right. What about dogs barking? Is that a noise ordinance issue as well?
Believe it or not, that is under animal control.
Okay.
And there's a state law on dogs
Nuisance or-
barking as a nuisance.
Okay,
Yeah. So if and we've gotten those calls before where someone's neighbor's dog is just incessantly barking and doesn't stop,
Yeah.
that you can call the police on that. The police can take enforcement action on the
Yeah.
dog barking.
Yeah.
So that's not covered under this ordinance, but it is covered under another ordinance.
Okay, yeah. I'm always concerned about them because it's not even so much that I mind the barking.
Yeah.
It's that, like, why are they there barking all the time? That's just not a good position for them to
Right.
be in. They're not happy, obviously.
right.
So, however, I also know for a fact that you cannot teach a dog to tell time.
No.
So,
I
saying,
take your
"Don't
word for
bark-
it.
don't
I've never
bark
tried
after
it,
9."
Dottie.
I tell her that all the time.
I
but
take
she
your word
just-
for it.
Yep. And she's a smart dog, so. By the way,
Yes.
today, she almost came to work with me because we are recording on Take Your Dog to Work Day.
Oh, wow.
Who knew?
Who knew?
I knew they had Take Your Daughter to Work and all of those things, but I was not aware of that until very recently.
Nor was I.
Yeah, so that's all about noise. And, okay, we've got a special meeting coming up. You got the approval on that for the union contract?
Well, we don't have the approval yet. We're going to court
so
July
you're
5th. There's a hearing July
So
5th.
you're anticipating that we probably will get a yes? Because I saw it noticed in the paper.
Well, yes, and what was
Okay.
noticed actually was the hearing, the court hearing
Oh,
in
the
the
court
paper.
hearing,
Yeah,
okay.
we had to note it. The
Okay.
hearing's on July 5th. Assuming we get approval from the Superior Court to hold a special election in
Okay,
September,
in September.
there'll be 2 public hearings on the contract, and then there'll be a deliberative session
And
on
which
it as well.
contract is this for?
This is for, so we have 6 unions at Town Hall. This is your middle management at Town Hall. And I shouldn't say 6 at Town Hall. There's 6 unions townwide, you know. And there's some at Town Hall. This is the middle management at Town Hall that is included in this union.
So who do we call middle management?
That would be your assistant assessing director, the town appraiser, the town planner, the GIS administrator, the executive assistant to Public Works, our sanitary person in Public Works as well.
Yeah.
So those kinds
are
of
the key.
positions.
I think
Yep.
it's often good for people to know not just what the union is
Right.
called or that, but to know what positions they're actually
Yeah.
talking about. So they have a feeling for what those people
Sure.
are doing for us. And
Right.
might want to get out and be more supportive. So we'll know July
Well, we'll know, I don't think we'll know
The
July
5th is the
5th, but
hearing.
I think we'll know shortly after July 5th on whether or
Okay.
not the court will grant the motion, allow us to hold a special hearing, and then we can move forward with
Okay.
the special meeting.
Sometime
then we can
in
move
September
forward.
is what we're looking at.
It would be, would coincide it with the September primary.
Oh,
the state
perfect. So you don't
September
have to have
primary.
another whole
Right, so you'd get 2 ballots.
expense of, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds like a very efficient
That's the plan. And as you said, the notice was published in
Yep.
the paper
It was.
this week. So if anyone picks up the Londonderry Times, they can
They'll
see the entire.
whole, yeah. If they can read it, I couldn't read that font.
Yeah,
just-
it was.
It's my eyes. It's,
yeah.
I mean, you can see I keep having to put my glasses
I'll
on
read
to
it
see
to
what
you,
the heck
Dottie,
we're
if you'd
doing.
like me to.
Well, that
Okay.
maybe tonight when I'm getting ready to fall asleep, you could be reading it to me. Will help me doze
We'll talk
off.
about that. it will
Over
put
the
you
phone,
to,
by the
it
way.
Will, it will put you to sleep. I'll guarantee you that.
Okay. Not exactly about what you were talking about when you were talking about middle management. You said assistant assessor. I don't know if many people know this, but our assessor, Karen Marchant, is retiring this month. She looks way too young to be retiring, but anyway, she is. And I just know that I, for one, as a department head, when there was something that didn't quite sink in, I could call Karen and I'd say, Karen, what's this all about? And Karen was like, right on top of it. So I hope for the public as well, but I definitely know for the employees, she's also always been a real font of knowledge.
She has
and
been.
Very, very helpful.
Yeah,
so.
and she's been here a long time.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of knowledge that'll be leaving with her.
Yeah, and not just about assessing.
About a lot of
About
things.
a lot of
She's
things,
she's been around municipal government for a long time,
Yeah.
and she will be missed. She's been a she's been a pillar over there in town hall for some time, and
that girl knows her stuff.
yes, she certainly does. Yeah, no, we'll miss her very much.
But I hope she has as much fun in retirement as I'm having.
I'm sure she will. She loves gardening.
I know.
And I know she's very much looking forward to doing more of it.
I've often asked her, if she runs out of space over at her house, she can come garden at my house.
Yeah.
Because I can't grow anything at all. So Karen, you will be missed, and we thank you for your many, many years of service to the town. Okay. Drug abuse services.
Yes.
We're moving forward on that. So what's going on at this point?
So again, on the March ballot, there was a warrant article passed to appropriate $50,000 for the town to more or less come up with a drug referral program to help out with the opioid and heroin addiction crisis. And it wasn't so that the town could specifically provide drug counseling services, but it was more or less as a program where if a family was struggling with this issue on one level or another, they could go to this resource and find out how to get help.
Okay.
And where to go and what the resources were that were out there. Because we used to have a family mediation program in town.
And it was good.
And we don't have
really
that
worked.
anymore.
Yeah.
So after this passed, I reached out to Dottie at Community Health Services in Derry. We've contracted many of our social service and welfare programs through them for many years now. And they've been awesome. They're responsive. They're great fiduciary agents with the money we give them. They vet every person that comes through their door to find out exactly what their needs are, and that they qualify for the assistance they're looking for. And so I reached out to them and said, is this something you might be able to help us out with? You've been great on so many other things that have been social service related. And they said absolutely. They put together a proposal. The initial proposal cost for the first year is at a fraction of what was appropriated, which is not surprising to me because, again, I made the comment during the last council meeting that, if we had put this out to competitive bid or RFP, there probably would have been a number of vendors who would have seen, oh, they've got $50,000 appropriate,
I'll charge them $49,500.
Exactly. Instead, they came in, CHS came in and said, we'll do this initially for $8,500 and let's see how it goes first.
Okay.
Let's take baby steps.
Okay.
Let's find out what really are the needs in the community in Londonderry, how many people utilize the program, and then we'll assess it in year 2 to see, do we need to allocate more money to it? Do we not need to allocate as much money? But let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go forward
Good
and
first
contract
step.
with them, and that'll start on July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how that goes. Just a thought, if you've got that money there, I don't know if it's okay to do this with, but there are going to be people who need services who do not have finances for those services, and I think that maybe we could kind of
look
at that.
And certainly, Dottie, I think that's part of it. If there are, So if a family or a person goes to CHS and they find out here are the resources, and those resources cost money, but they don't have the funds in order to pay for the
And they
resources,
can come back to them.
then they can go back to CHS to ask for that assistance there. But as you mentioned, we also have other monies appropriated for this where we could also help out with.
Yeah,
So. So that certainly is definitely a possibility.
It can be such a burden on a family, even though they want to be so supportive of the person. But trying to reverse that addiction is so difficult. And I think that a lot of people are not patient because they think that, well, I'm going to send them to a 30-day program and they're going to come out and they're going to be fine.
Right.
No,
No, it
in
doesn't work
30
that
days
way.
they're going to get off of the drugs and
Right.
they're going to be having some counseling and they're going to start getting there. But often they're not far enough along to keep maintaining that once
Right.
they're on their own.
Right.
So sometimes there is a repeat.
Right. No, the
recidivism, if you will.
recidivism is. I mean, I worked in the juvenile justice system for 4 years and witnessed it firsthand with kids younger than 18 years old, and it's not like flipping a switch overnight. You know, it takes months and years of progress.
Yeah, it does. And it takes sometimes a lot of re-education, not just of the person with the addiction, but of the people that are around them.
Right.
Because you can be affecting that addiction without even realizing it.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've been doing some form or other of drug abuse prevention or reform or whatever since around 1983. And helped a lot of families in town. And we had a group at the high school that did sort of a loosely defined parenting class where parents would come in. There were 4 of us that would be there, and we would talk to them and help them come around with a good solution on how to deal with what they were going through.
Yep.
We had the family mediation program, which Joe Ryan, our former police chief, his wife was the first mediator. That was an awesome program and continued to be with Cindy Lencina, who did it the last that I remember. So it's definitely an issue that's been around there for a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't opioids back in 1983.
Right. It was other.
But the problem is there.
The problem is,
And now we've got some drugs that are just so incredibly dangerous.
Right.
That I'm glad to see that the town's taking a positive step to address this. And let me throw in one little plug here. If someone needs help and they're not finding it wherever they're looking, or they haven't had an opportunity to do the CHS yet, if you call 211, it's a state phone number, and it will connect you to a service that will tell you, just say to them, this is what I need, and they go, where are you? And or they know where you are usually in the state, and they'll say, well, these are the resources that are available in your area.
Yeah.
And it's for anything. Okay, if you need to learn about how to deal with your finances, or how to get your dog set up to be a trained service dog. No, it doesn't make any difference what the question is. Maybe you're planting flowers and you can't identify this thing, I don't know. But they can put you in touch with the service, and it's like that. I keep thinking, do they have it all memorized? They assure me they have like a resource book right in front of them where they can just slip to what they need or on the computer. So, but it's an awesome service, and it's not being utilized enough, and it's available, I think, in almost every state in the country now.
Yeah.
But you have to call 211
Yeah.
in the state you're living in to
Yeah.
get the resources in that state. So,
Right.
so if you're watching this in Massachusetts, you can dial 211 down there and get the mass help. So, I don't know if anybody's watching us in Massachusetts.
You never know, Dottie.
You don't
we are streaming online.
This is true.
I hear we're quite popular in Woburn.
In Woburn,
Yes.
okay. Well, I know I've had some followers from Peabody and North Andover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were related. Something good is coming to town. I know some people are probably cheering about this. A cell tower?
So there's a proposed cell tower, I believe off of Wiley Hill Road. And I'm never afraid to admit when I don't know enough about
And I appreciate that, and
topic,
I consider that
so-
part of being transparent.
Absolutely. I believe, Dottie, because I've been kind of peripherally following it through the process. I believe they received a variance from the ZBA recently to locate the cell tower in the area of Wiley Hill,
Right.
which, as you're probably aware, is a major dead zone area around there. So now the next process will be they have to go through the planning board and get
Right.
approval from the planning board to be able to locate it. I will tell you that as part of the planning process, we have already started talking to them about allowing us to put our emergency dispatch equipment on
Great.
that cell tower, much like the agreement we worked out with the one behind Sargent Road.
Should be standard operation.
Yeah, and so, and my understanding is that initial discussions with them about that have been very positive. And so it's something that makes sense and something we should be doing in anytime we have these
Yeah.
negotiations with the cell towers, is looking to put our equipment on there to improve dispatch
Right.
capabilities around the town.
And definitely, if you're one of those people that doesn't have cell service and you pay for it, you might want to go to a meeting and speak up and say how much you think it's important.
Absolutely.
So,
No, absolutely.
yeah.
And you know, there's always the issue of how big of an eyesore,
I know,
will
yeah.
it be? And you know, there's always that balance, Dottie, you know, in this day and age, whether it's energy issues, technology issues, you know, that you have that balance of, you know, keeping things environmentally nice looking and keeping the natural look, while at the same time providing the technological services, you know,
Yeah.
for your residents at the same time. But the planning board process and the public hearings is for people to come and express
their opinions.
their
Yeah.
opinions about it.
Yep, okay. All right, and that's another part of transparency, is we have those hearings.
Yep.
And most of these kinds of things require hearings.
Yes.
Okay, we need an update on Moose Hill.
Moose Hill.
No, Woodmont.
Woodmont.
Wrong apples, sorry.
I was going to say, I didn't come prepared with
I
an
got
update
the
on,
wrong
on
apples.
Moose Hill.
No, Woodmont.
Woodmont.
Woodmont, especially if you have any insight into what in the heck are they doing in the parking lot in front of Market Basket?
Well, it's all coming together.
It's part of that project, though, right?
Well,
somewhat?
not
No?
really. No. Everything they're doing to the parking lot right now and the reseeding of the grass and everything. I was just up there yesterday, and it's actually starting to look
like
like
something.
it's making sense. Yeah, because I was up there like you probably and everyone else a week ago and 2 weeks ago, and it was like a maze all through there. You know.
Yep.
It's starting now to make, you know, the roads, the connectivity is all starting to make a lot more sense. But that's all just part of the plaza redevelopment.
Okay.
What they're doing right now with the parking lots and the loam. I mean, remember they took that whole building down,
yeah.
so they had areas to loam and seed there, so that now they're doing all the landscaping, which I have to say, in my opinion, looks very nice. What they're doing. That should all be completed probably over the next month or so.
Okay.
But that is unrelated to Woodmont.
Okay.
Just
the center.
It is and it isn't unrelated. I mean, it's, you know, that the redevelopment of that plaza was always part of the Woodmont project.
Yes, it was.
But that is, it's still Market Basket Demoulas related and not so much Pillsbury Realty related, who are the developers for Woodmont.
Okay.
So they're related, but it's not directly.
Yes, all right.
So, but Woodmont itself, the starts of the downtown, the commercial retail areas, it's on track for them to submit a formal site plan to us very, very soon, either by the end of this month or at the very beginning of July.
Okay.
And they are trying to target an approval date from the planning board for their first site plan in September, so that they can start construction, you know, this fall.
Okay.
Yep. So everything they're doing up there right now is laying the groundwork for what will come next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, it seems like it takes so long to do things sometimes.
Well, you know, sometimes it does. You know, and that's part of the process. You know, it's part of the approval process. But I have to tell you that, you know, there's a lot of planning that goes into these developments too that aren't part of the process,
right.
that are part of the
You don't
developer
see it,
side.
yeah.
It's their engineering that they have to do, and it's their architectural renderings and their landscape design and all of that. You know, once they submit a site plan to us, we have limitations on how quick we turn it around.
Right.
You know, we will turn it around in 30 days, and then we'll give an extension if it's more work is needed. But you know, it's because we want to provide a reasonable amount of time where they're going to get a yay or nay from the planning board,
Right,
and from staff as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
It's everything behind the scenes away from that can often take long. You know,
much time.
what Woodmont is doing right now is you can't submit an incomplete site plan. Well, you can, but
But it's not going to do you any good.
It's not going to do you any good. So you got to have all your T's crossed, all your I's dotted when you're submitting a site plan, and getting to that point, especially for a development
huge project.
as large as Woodmont, is taking you know, is taking a while because there's a lot to do.
Right, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say that I think that based on what's happened in the parking lot outside of Market Basket, and the fact that it appears to me that they were very efficient and only moved things once, they should talk to the state about building roads.
Well,
It's just when I'm looking at the exits and what they've done with the exits,
Yeah.
it just seems like you ride down that highway, and today the pile of dirt is here, and the rocks are over here, and tomorrow the rocks are there, and the dirt is here, and it's like, can't we just move it once? Wouldn't that be faster?
you know,
That's just
I'm
driving
not
by.
a civil engineer, so I cannot speak to any type of construction or building of roads or anything like that. What I can tell you is that the bids for exit 4 in the road, in the reconstruction of I-93 at exit 4 and the reconstruction of that exit, and all, those bids are all going out this summer. I think construction is slated to start later this year on that, certainly by next year. And I will tell you that, just to give people a warning now,
It's going to take a while?
it's not that it's going to take a while. The traffic is going to be an absolute nightmare at exit 4 over the next couple of years, because you have a private development project going on at Woodmont, which is going to take some reconstruction of 102.
Right.
And then you have the whole rebuilding of exit 4 and parts of 102 from Londonderry into Derry. When it's all done, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be better than anyone could ever imagine it. But getting there, expect some delays.
So if people are easily frustrated, you would recommend that
Going to
perhaps they
exit
get
5.
your haircut for that process,
Or
so
drive
they
to
can't
exit
pull their
5.
hair out?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I had another question for you, and that is, I saw that there's some discussion going on about school impact fees. And can you give me a little background on that? We're going to have the superintendent on the very next show, so we'll be talking with him as well.
Yeah,
But I wondered if you could give me what's going on the town side
sure.
with that.
So Nate had invited me in to give the
Nate's the superintendent, for anybody who doesn't know.
Nate Greenberg,
Yes.
superintendent, had invited me in to give the school board an update on whether or not we could assess school impact fees for, or in anticipation of future growth
Right.
and population increases. The short answer I gave him was probably not going to happen for a number of reasons. One is that first, to implement any kind of school impact fees takes about a year analysis because you have to come up with a formula
Right.
for how much you're going to charge for the impact fees.
So you have to have some idea of what the impact's actually going to be.
Right. And that whole plan, that whole process of coming up with that formula, going and getting it passed from the planning board to the town council takes about a year to do that. And it's also probably about a $20,000 venture to do that.
Does Southern New Hampshire Planning give any input on that sort of thing? Future growth?
Well, I think
and-
they do. They do give some input on it.
But not enough to really move.
Nothing that would help either expedite the process or
Okay.
pay for the process either. The other thing is that, we were charging impact fees from 2006 to 2012 at a time where town and school populations were declining every year.
Right.
So we were assessing these impact fees
Without an impact.
for future growth without an impact. And I think if the town were to now walk into a judge and want to, justify levying these impacts again, the judge is going to look at it and say, well, wait a minute, you were collecting these fees when you had a declining enrollment happening.
Yeah.
So, and that's coming from our attorney's advice, who we talked to about this. So as I told the board, I said, in short, there's really not an appetite on the town council to reinstitute the impact fee program at this time. Something we can take a look at, though, is doing development agreements with developers to see if they will pay for a proportional share of future capital costs.
Okay.
We can't mandate that they do them as a condition of their approvals, but we can certainly work with them and ask them to see if
I
it's...
think we've done that in the past, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah.
And in fact, we did it with Woodmont.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what Woodmont agreed to as part of their development agreement is, number one, if there's the need for a school in that area in the future, that they would sell the land to the school district at 85% of market costs. So, they'd get a 15% discount on any land purchase. That's number one. Number two is Woodmont has to keep the town at least revenue neutral through the life of the project. So at the end of every year, once they start going, if their tax receipts, what they're bringing in for tax revenue, does not exceed or at least meet what it's costing in services for the town, then they have to write a check to the town.
Okay.
So if we saw ourselves in a scenario where suddenly Woodmont was causing a significant amount of school-related services because of new residential dwellings, and their tax revenue was below
What would accommodate that?
accommodate that, then they physically have to write a check over to the town.
Okay.
So that
And I'm assuming that throughout that process, you're going to have to keep pretty good records as to what the impacts are as you go along.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, sounds
So-
good. So what else would you like to tell the people? Have you got any dates coming up that they should know about? When's Old Home Day?
Old Home Day is in August. I think it's August the 20th this year.
Is
It's
it?
it's always the third Saturday
Yeah.
in August. I think that's about the 20th this year. Of course, it's a half week long.
We have a really little calendar.
Can you read it?
No,
You want me to read it?
I don't know, is that 2016 on that side or is that 2015?
That's 2015.
Then you won't be able to tell because it's only the
Oh,
first 6
it
months
only
of
goes
the
to
year.
June.
Yeah.
Well,
I haven't put my
third Saturday in August.
Whoop, mark
People
your
check that
calendar.
out.
Yeah,
As I said, I
okay.
think it's the 20th.
Okay.
And so we're gearing up for that. It'll be
Okay.
here before we know it. And other than that,
Well said.
and then we'll be going into budget season.
Oh, glory.
It'll be here before we know it, Dottie.
Boy, I don't miss that at all. Not at all. The whole process was just, and it changed, the process itself changed so many times while I was working for the town.
Yeah.
It never thrilled me. So it's just so hard to go and prove to somebody something that you know. You know it because you're doing it every day and you know this is needed. And then
Yeah.
to go and try and give people the information they need so that they will understand it. It's a hard process. Got to
Wow.
give those guys a lot of credit for going through it every year. But it's at least the timeline has been streamlined a bit.
Yes,
so
it
it's
has.
not 50% of the year stuck in the budget.
Right.
So, okay, well, I guess we're all set
Yeah.
then for today.
That's about it.
And if anybody wants to know anything about what's going on in town, just go to that town webpage. It's a good webpage. There's
Yep.
a lot of information there. And that's at londonderrynh.org, which we put at the end of the program. If you want anything in particular put on the show for us to talk about, just let me know. Our information's on the end of the program as well. You can call or email or write a letter or whatever it is you like to do. So I thank you for watching, and I hope that you will be in touch with us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want, and we'll try and address that for you. So Kevin, thank you for coming.
Dottie, thanks for having
And
me.
see you
As
next month.
always, we'll see you next month.
See you next month.
Okay.
Thank you.